Hello world. How are we doing out
Hey.
there today?
Hello, my friends. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Bernardo, how you doing, man?
Fine, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another day, another dollar. It's good to see you, buddy. Today is a really fun one for us. We get to hang out with a good friend of ours, Michael Lee of Snarky Puppy and Bocante and Ground Up Music and all those freaking amazing things he does. And chat a little bit about Brazilian music, Pandeiro, of course. We're very biased here. We're going to talk about that a bit. And a few other things, our new method out there, all of that kind of stuff. But we're reaching, I think, a new audience today, getting to talk to some of the Ground Up fans and Snarky Puppy fans. So welcome everybody. This is Groove Art Live. This is our attempt at a live internet show where we talk about pandeiro and Brazilian music. And we try and talk about it in a very universal manner and reaching out to other people outside of Brazil. We go back and forth, really. On Tuesdays, I try and speak in Portuguese, and it's horrendous. And we do all of our shows in Portuguese those days. And Bernardo's more comfortable that day, yeah?
Oh, very better.
And then on Thursdays, I drive the bus, and we do shows in English. And I think it's a really cool way to take this instrument out into the world because it's something that, reached out and grabbed me for a long time ago. But I think for so many people, when they see this instrument, it's like, what's up with that tambourine you got there? Why is that tambourine plugged in, And so to be able to share that and share this culture and this music with people outside of Brazil is a really cool thing. And if you're a fan of Snarky Puppy, if you're a fan of Ground Up, you probably know PRD Mais, which is our like Brazilian percussion super group with Bernardo and Gabriel Policarpo, Gustavo Oliveira, Guilherme Oliveira, Boca Reis, Carlos Malta, Chris Bullock of Snarky Puppy. And we've had the honor of being able to play at the Ground Up Music Festival and share the stage with Snarky Puppy and a bunch of other incredible people. So maybe you've seen us there a little bit and have some familiarity with Brazilian music, but I expect we're going to have like a good mix in the crowd today of people from Brazil, alô amigos, and people from
Alô, alô.
outside. So this is going to be a fun one. You ready, Bernardo?
Vamos nessa.
Vamos nessa is an important phrase. Let's get into it. Let's do it. One of the things I love so much about PRD Mais and that whole experience is the portunhol inglês kind of thing that we talk in a lot of time. Let's is one of our favorite phrases by Carlos Malta. That became like the mantra of one of our tours. Let's. And Vamos Nessa is pretty much right in that same vein as well, too. Vamos Nessa. So let's get out there a little bit, and we can talk a little bit about why we're doing this show in the first place. This is a new venture for me and Bernardo. Obviously, we're not professional broadcasters here. We're just musicians at home without a gig, trying to do some things and trying to reach people and try and connect in a new and different way. And I think one of the ways that we've been able to do that is through this method, Bernardo, that you and I have been working on for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Show a little bit.
It's been
the
about
idea?
7 years of this method. Yeah, let's show a little bit of the method and kind of share people what we've been working on and what the impetus is for this entire show. I think we started on this thing like maybe 7 years or so ago, and we were originally going to do it, and it was going to be like a DVD, and then that. Hey, Roland, baby, what's up? You remember Roland from PASIC in Texas, Bernardo? He was a friend of ours that we met there. Alini. Nice. We got friends in the audience. I love it.
Nice.
We started on this project, maybe about when we met you, Roland, man, a long time ago. And now it's up online and available for everybody to access and see and study pandeiro. So Bernard, if you want to show a little bit of that and what it looks like.
Okay, you selected Ijexá, right?
Yeah, Ijexá.
Ijexá.
One of my favorite rhythms, man.
It's a rhythm from...
Nesse terceiro ritmo, a gente vai pegar essa linha percussiva, rítmica, e traduzir para os sons graves e médios do pandeiro. Vamos então utilizar os toques alternados, vamos começar por cima e vamos também utilizar a técnica de mudança de tom para dar um swing a mais, porque dá um resultado bem legal e serve muito bem quando o pandeiro está sendo tocado sozinho e é responsável pela seção rítmica. Vamos ao ritmo.
Okay, just to give idea.
And then we do it nice and slow, and it goes on for
Yeah.
a while.
And there is
And
a
you-
medium tempo too.
Yeah, exactly. So we go through different tempos like that, and show you the rhythm written out pretty clearly in a Pandero notation that was developed by others and used by us here. And it's you can probably tell by the length of Bernardo's hair how long ago that was when we started doing this. So it's been a minute since we started that thing.
I was young.
Yeah, exactly. Back when you were young, we all had dreams.
Yeah.
So and within that method, you get to study Pandero through a bunch of different rhythms. That one we selected, Ijexá, is I think a really important rhythm for Brazilian music because what gets out from Brazil for the most part is right. Bossa Nova, samba, maybe forró. That stuff is known in a lot of different places. But Ijexá is one that you hear all the time, but you may not know it, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a very common bridge feel, in a lot of like Brazilian MPB, música popular brasileira tunes, that kind of stuff. They use that, reference it a lot.
And the idea of this method is to show the people how to adapt any rhythm you want to do, because we believe that this instrument that I play, Brian plays as well, is an instrument that we can do a lot of adaptations. And it's like a drum set. A drum set started as an instrument from jazz, but today is a universal instrument, like a guitar, like a piano, instruments of ideas. And Pandero is just starting with this. Is an instrument that came from many regional cultures around Brazil, like capoeira, frevo, like choro, for example,
Exactly.
samba, and many others. But in the 20 years ago, starting from 20 years ago, the Pandero started to be more universal. And then, like we got Brian that studied this instrument. He was punched when he first listened the sound of Pandero. And I think somehow, I think my colleague and Snarky Puppy were very interested in Pandero too. I remember when they invited me to play for the first time.
Yeah.
I just play one groove, a simple groove like forró, like a,
Show it. Come
like
on.
a, but with a good sound in a PA, because when they called me, it was already in the sound check. I met them in the sound check here in Brazil in
So
BMW.
this is in Rio, right?
It was in Rio in BMW Jazz Festival. Very nice. Ahmad Jamal was in the same night. Incredible.
Wow.
And when I played that, everybody was like, and I was doing not very complicated, but it's because I think, and you can say better, Brian, that as you have in your culture a tambourine,
Yeah.
I think American people expect a small sound, and
Expect very little from that instrument.
yeah.
And then it turns into a huge wall of sound. And that's the thing that like got me the first time that I heard it from Marco Susano, was the guy that we talk about a lot because he's kind of the godfather of this modern version of the instrument. He was the first guy to kind of really detune it and put a microphone up close on it so that you get this big fat sound that you hear like Bernardo playing with now. And so all of a sudden, this instrument that used to be just a samba instrument can now be like a funk groove instrument.
Yeah, there is a history that I like to tell is when I was with Gabriel Policarpo, with my duo, Pandeiro Repique duo, we were giving a kind of a class or show in Brooklyn for the children, and the teacher opened for questions. We made our show with this Pandeiro thing, and anybody has any question, and the children, me. What's the question? And the small girl asked, what's the difference between tambourine and your instrument? And I said, my instrument, there is a bass sound like this. And I haven't completed one bar, and all the children, whoa.
Everybody loves a backbeat, man.
Yeah.
Never fails. It never fails.
So I think it's an instrument that can communicate very well. Uh,
Yeah, it works in a bunch of
doesn't matter
different styles,
the
man.
culture.
Because what it is at its core is it's a rhythmic synthesizer. You have like a low sound, you have a medium sound, you have a high sound, the same way that you would find it on a drum set: bass drum, snare drum, hi hat. And with those three sounds, you can you can fit into a lot of different things. And so when you bring like a hip hop feel or a funk feel to that instrument, especially depending on the audience, man, you're going to get a reaction out of it. Same way if you went to Colombia and you played a cumbia on it, what? It's coming out of that pandereta. Like, how does that work? So it's a really amazing instrument, and nowadays it's a great one to practice at home in your apartment while we're all stuck in lockdown, man, because it's a tiny little thing, makes a good amount of noise, and you can play anything you want on it. So we love that instrument, and I think that's something that really got Michael League's attention and Snarky Puppy's attention when you played with them. And then that brought you to work more with them, and eventually take you up to New Orleans, man.
Yeah.
Up to the birthplace of jazz.
Michael invited me to do family dinner too, and it was amazing to do that.
Yeah,
And,
that was an experience.
I think I have here to show a little bit.
Yeah,
of
let's
the
do it,
sound.
man. That was an incredible experience. I remember driving up from Miami just to hang and be a fly on the wall for this. Let's check it out. Yeah. Look at that, a pro with the fade out too. Incredible. Yeah, man. That was what a show, dude. What an incredible thing. Let's bring him on, man. Let's get right into it. Michael League, man. Come on in here. Hello, buddy.
Hello.
How we doing in Barcelona,
dudes?
man? Not
Good.
much, man. Good to see you,
Everything's
bud. Yeah. Beautiful, man. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you joining us today, and
for having me.
and it's good to just hang with you, man. It's been too long, dude. It's been since I think the Ground Up Festival since we got to see each other. So good to see you again, man.
Yeah, it's been a long year.
You're supposed to
Little
meet
bit.
on March, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to meet on March, but then the corona. doesn't
And
allow.
something happened. I don't know what, but something got in the way of pretty much everything this year. So let's talk about happier times. Let's talk about
Cool.
see, there you go. Look at that production value. Let's talk about happier times. Let's talk about when you met Malta and Bernardo for the first time, because I know that was a really cool thing to be able to bring them along with Salif Keita and get that kind of interaction between the two of them. But I think you guys have a history before that as well too. So can you talk a little bit about how you guys met?
Yeah, it was actually through the great woodwindist Jeff Coffin from the Dave Matthews Band and Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. Jeff was, I think Snarky Puppy was on tour in Nashville where Jeff lives, and you know, Jeff's one of those people that just really loves sharing music with others, you know. I think I would say even more so than most musicians. I think most musicians like to do that, but Jeff is very he really knows kind of, oh, this person would really love this kind of music that I'm aware of, or blah, blah, blah. So he hipped us to this record called Pandeiro by Carlos Malta and Pifi Mudeno. And it's, you know, a record with Marco Susano and Malta and some other incredible musicians. And it's just I think it's just Pife and Pandeiro. Is that right, Bernardo?
Yeah, there is some tracks with saxophone and bass flute and flute, but
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
bamboo flute and percussion.
Right, yeah. And just, you know, I think the whole band just kind of went nuts. We were listening. That was back in the days of CD players in vans. This was a very long time ago. And you know, it was just, yeah, you know, when Snarky Puppy was spending most of its time it crammed together in one van, which, you know, I definitely am glad that now we don't do that. But there were some advantages to that situation. And one of them is that you choose a record and 10 people listen to it, you know, and you share that experience together. And that's an important part, I think, of growing together as a band, is listening to things together and talking about them. So that record became a band favorite. So we were listening to it constantly. And then when we were going to Rio for the first time to play at the BMW Jazz Festival, we asked Jeff, hey, can you connect us with Carlos? So he did, and Carlos brought Bernardo to the gig. We were expecting Marcos, and Bernardo came to the gig, and yeah, you know, we played this tune that I wrote together. That's like a buyout, and like a fake buyout. And you know, Bernardo and Carlos played with us, and we all, you know, I mean, it's like these, you know, Brian, like these guys are just like the friendliest, warmest people, you know, the best hang. And we had an incredible night. We went to we played, and then I think they came with us to Sao Paulo, I think too, and we went to Odo Borogodó, and you know, this all night samba club, you know, live band till 4 a.m, all this kind of stuff. It was awesome. So it kind of and we went to Semente, this club that now is closed in Rio, and you know, Carlos and Bernardo really kind of took us around and you know, showed us the scene. You know, that's kind of our favorite thing to do, Snarky Puppy, when we go to a country with a rich musical culture. You know, we're trying to engage with that culture the best we can in as little time as we have, you know, or as much as possible.
As much as you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bernardo's kind of like the mayor of Rio, the unofficial little mayor of Rio. I feel like every time I walk around with him, somebody recognizes him. Oh, Bernardo, stopping off, talking to friends, and he always takes you to the best places. And one of the best places.
Yeah, we went to,
for sure.
Bernardo, you took us to a Faho.
They went here in my studio.
Oh, that's a good place.
Yeah.
10 Snarky Puppies here. We were playing some drums and piano as well. And then I brought them to a musical store of percussion called Maracatu Brasil,
Ah, nice. The playground.
and to eat food from Amazonia in Tacacá do Norte,
Tacacá,
and
nice.
then Semente. So it was completely day.
Yeah, that's the Bernardo day. That's the standard one. Yeah, Semente is an amazing place, man. I really miss that vibe when I go there now, because you could just count on having killer music there happening every night and just wander in. It's a different thing. And I probably, with the night that you guys went, was it a Zé Paulo Becker night, Bernardo? Do you remember?
For sure.
Yeah, Zé Paulo Becker is incredible.
On Mondays.
Yeah, Mondays is the day there. Mondays is the best day, because there was always a jam session and a bunch of musicians coming in. You never know who's going to roll through. That night it was you guys. That night it was Snarky Puppy rolling through. But like on any given night, somebody else is coming through, and you're like, well, who's here? And they just jump in, and there's such a climate in that place. And I think in Brazil in general, of just really extreme inclusiveness, you know? Like if you show some interest in the music,
totally.
Bam, they want to bring you in.
Yeah, it was really funny. I remember one thing that I remember from that night. I mean, we were hanging quite a bit, so it's a little fuzzy, but cachaça is a hell of a drink.
Yes, it is.
And we were, I mean, we had such a blast. You know, we were playing stuff with Marcos was there, and you know, we were having a blast. And then I remember at the end of the night, it was somebody's bright idea to play a samba or something, you know. And I mean, there were Brazilians playing with us, but the rhythm section was American. You know, I think it was like, or Canadian, you know, Larnell and me and maybe Bill or something. And it was really, I remember, I think we played Favela or something. And it was, I would never hesitate to play that song in a jam session in the United States, but it was really funny that after hearing the real shit all night, we started to play it, and I just wanted to kill him. I wanted to die. I was like, this is the worst decision ever. Like,
I'm so sorry, guys.
Oh, it was like because you really feel the difference immediately.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
because it's a vocabulary
and that's a
thing, man.
I mean, and just the swing and the groove, it's really its own thing. And it's a feeling, you know, that I've definitely experienced a lot, because I really love folkloric music, and you know, I study in Turkey and Morocco, and now I'm spending a lot of time in the south of Spain, because now that I live in Spain, checking out flamenco stuff. And you know, you can't just start, especially as a foreigner, you can't just start at a high level. Like, you're going to come in at an entry level, and you have to play with people who know how the thing goes, and you have to get your ass kicked. I mean, the same thing happened to me with American music, with jazz, and especially with like gospel music. I'm American, gospel's American,
but language for you though.
But right, it comes from a different American culture, you know. So, you know, there's a significant amount of times where I was getting on stage and I was really feeling seriously inferior, you know. But I think it's an important part of the process of learning, that you get around people that are kicking your butt, and that you try to just eat up as much of that as you can to kind of keep pushing on to the next.
I mean, it's exactly how I feel in PRD Maish. I'm just getting my ass kicked across the
right.
stage by
Yeah.
all these guys, you know.
It's great.
And
it's an enviable position.
It's an incredible way to learn, man. I mean, you always want to, I think there's kind of this sentiment that you always want to like be learning something while you're playing, you know. If you're playing and you feel like you have the most command of everything in the room, then you're not playing in the right place, man. There's something about playing with other people who can really show you something.
Right.
That to me is a lot of the joy of playing music. And we heard you talk on another podcast, I think, about Jamie Haddad quote, where he was telling you that the world doesn't need another Darabuka player. And like, that there's a kind of a truth to that sort of thing, you know, like you're not going to like surpass the greatest folkloric player because you're playing from a deficit already. No. Just years and years of not being there. And it's also not the point, you know? And I think that a lot too when I play with these guys is I'm not coming in there to try and sound exactly like a Brazilian. I'm coming there to sound like myself, but like with a sound that's informed by all my experience with these guys, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the real balance, you know. I mean, I felt that when I you know, I wrote 2 buyouts for Snarky Puppy, you know, and it's like, or, you know, when I'm, yeah, you know, I mean, I produce for a lot of records that I produce are like, I just produced the Fado record, you know, in Portugal. Oh, wow. It's like, this is a music with a very deep, very purist musical tradition.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like you definitely get the feeling when you go to Brazil, you're whatever, a white American, and you play a samba, Like, if it's not killing, people will be like,
It's still fun.
it's nice that he's trying.
Yeah, look,
It's not that scene in Lisbon. You know what I mean? It's not that way. Like there's a real, this is how we do it. And, you know, and I was working with this incredible fado singer named Gisela Joao, and who's like a big star there. And she's, and she's always been a bit controversial, like, because she's not the kind of the traditional kind of physically type. She's tattooed up. She wears whatever she'll do a gig in tennis shoes. She really says what she thinks, you know, and she's, you know, there have been some kind of more traditional singers who have been like, Amalia Rodriguez would be rolling in her grave if she saw a singer in tennis shoes do it. You know, this kind of, there's really this kind of conflict in the world of fado. And Gisela came to me saying, I want to do some shit that's like mixing electronic music with fado. And because that's what I grew up. I'm like a fado musician. I grew up in that, but I also went to raves. So like, let's see what we can do. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, you know, like this is like danger zone, you know, like you could be getting death threats when this record comes out. But, you know, but the first, you know, I think that when you're in a position like that, which is not so dissimilar from your position, Brian, playing in PRD Maish, is that, you know, the first step is to start to educate yourself on the tradition. Yeah. You know, because you're not going to be able to push the shit in a new direction and in a tasteful direction until you understand the direction it's been heading for a long time, you know? And you're never going to understand that as deeply as a person that grew up in Rio, but you can do your best to try. And I think the second step is the recognition of what you have to offer. Right? Like you're like, okay, this is where the tradition is coming from. This is what the thing has always been. I know now, I know all the rhythms. I know the, you know, blah, 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 whatever. All, you know, I know the history. I know the major artists. I recognize the exploration that has already happened in the genre. And that's step one. And then step two is like, okay, what do I have to bring to this thing that actually makes me an asset versus a liability? You know, because if I try to be the authentic thing, I'm a liability. Because I will never be that. Exactly. But if I look at what it is that I can, what's that?
You are two compositions from Snarky Puppy that plays with Brazilian music, Baião. It's Semente and Tio Macaco, right? There is anyone else?
There's kind of one that's called Like a Light that is kind of it. I wouldn't put it in that zone. I mean, it has a little bit of that feeling.
I think it's very nice because it does not sound like a Brazilian Baião, but it's very, very good because I think exactly this, you haven't tried to be a Brazilian, but you took this influence from Brazil and make your own thing.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as soon as we started to record this stuff, we were like, let's use the groove from D'Angelo's Spanish joint as the foundation rather than a Baião rhythm. Because we're not going to swing like
Tio Macaco or Semente you are talking now.
Semente specifically, but I think maybe also Tio Macaco, you know, you know, like because that's coming from our culture. That's a kind of grooving that we know how to do, and we're not going to be posers doing it. You know, I mean, the music is obviously, and also in the way that the Semente, you know, maybe is a better example because also I worked hard in the arrangement to do contrapuntal stuff that you would normally never hear in Brazilian music, to try harmonic shifts that you would normally not hear, and also sonic stuff that you normally wouldn't hear. So basically like pulling as much stuff from our world as Snarky Puppy to put into the composition as we possibly could, you know. You know, with Tio Macaco, I think it's much less successful because I was listening to so much of the like pife pandeiro stuff in that moment that like I really wrote that song just for flute and percussion. And then once you add bass, when you hear it on a trumpet, I don't particularly like playing that song or hearing that song because for me, I kind of, I would rather hear it like with you and Carlos playing a duo. I think it actually sounds better that way.
Right. Let's listen Semente.
Please, rather than the other one.
We had it queued up and everything too. We're not going to go into it now. All right, we'll go with it.
Oh, what gig is this? Marseille?
Oh, yeah.
Shit. No, talk something because there. I said before. Remember, Brian? I said
You did. You
and
called it.
if advertiser will start, what will you do? Then
We will
I
do
just
this.
cut. But
Yeah, we
okay,
will just-
say something about Semente, please. Then I will prepare again.
So let's tie it to the club just to make that link real clear. Is that Semente is referencing the club where you guys hung out that night, you know? And then the other
That's
thing
right,
is what does Semente mean? Like the word itself means seed,
Seed.
right? And that's kind of what Semente was for Rio. It was like the seed of music because a lot of just jam sessions happen there, a lot of musical encounters happen there. You know, so many people are coming together and meeting each other the first time. You know, you wrote this. How long after you went to Semente did you start working on this project?
I mean, I think right after.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not much long after. I think I started writing it. Maybe we recorded it a couple years later, but I started writing it right afterward. Because I mean, it's like that's one of those places you go and it's in you.
It's special.
You know what I mean?
That was a
I mean,
really special place.
Yeah, and I mean, just Brazil also in general. It's like a place where the musical personality is so strong that when you leave it, it's kind of already in your body in a certain kind of way, you know.
Yeah, man, you're preaching to the choir, buddy. You're preaching to the choir. All right, we got it now.
Yeah, I hope so.
Let's roll Semente.
And we're constantly crossing paths with
shut up.
you know, and good friends and
We wanted to hear you play. We don't want to hear you talk.
people are really beautiful.
Oh man, yeah, that's every Instagram comment ever.
To be here
Yeah.
with some of his incredible band tonight. We're playing some songs from a new record that just came out called Culture Vulture.
Yeah. There we go. There we go. Swinging, dude. Swinging, dude. It is really something that's that takes from that Baião tradition, from that forró tradition, and then adds a new layer of harmony to it that you're not going to typically find there. We love that tune. We love that tune. So, have you been to a forró?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I've been to one in Bernardo took me to one in Rio. I've been to one in Paris.
No, unfortunately not. I have a dream to bring those guys to Sucupira night.
Yeah, there's a group
I
called
will do.
Sexteto Sucupira that plays every Wednesday,
cool.
or used to
The house
play every
band.
Wednesday night in Brazil, and they have some originals and they do a bunch of other tunes. But traditionally forró is going to be sanfona, accordion, triangle, zabumba, and then 3 vocal parts harmonizing. But this group is a sextet. They have drums and percussion and bass, so it's a little bit more modern instrumentation, bandolim. But it's
Yeah,
a dance
progressive.
band, and it's
Yeah.
all instrumental. There's no vocals. I mean, sometimes they invite guests. That kind of
We
stuff.
brought Magda there.
That's right.
She's
Yeah,
playing
last
there.
summer.
awesome.
Last
Yeah.
time we brought Magda to that, and it's just it's a dance party, man. It's just so good to see like dance bands in action, because I think that's something that like we play a lot of music that comes from dance music, but when we play at places, people aren't dancing the same way that they would at like
Yeah.
a full hall.
The musician in Brazil, in general, we have the responsibility to play to people dance. So we have to make in a way that will make people don't stop to dance.
Yeah. Well, you feel that when you hear Brazilians play.
It works. It works. Well, here, let's get into a little philosophical question about Brazil since we're on the subject.
Guys, the production is stellar, I have to say.
Yeah.
We are trying. So
Production.
this kind of brings it to this point here. What do you think about the differences and similarities between U.S. and Brazilian music? And this is a question I get asked a lot. Here it's, in short, why are there less examples of communal drumming in the U.S. than Brazil? But what Bernardo asked me the first time was, what happened to your conga drums?
I wish my brother were here now because he's an ethnomusicologist with a focus in Northeastern Brazilian music, but I'm not. So I don't actually know. I'm sure there's an actual ethnomusicological answer to that question. That I don't know. So the second question, I'm going to abstain, lest I come off as more ignorant than I already am. But the first question, the similarities that I see, I think there's a reason why Americans are so into Brazilian music, and one of them is the collision between Western European classical harmony, melody, as well, and African percussion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that it's an ingrained part of American tradition to have this kind of richness. It's in our popular music. If you think of a person like Stevie Wonder, you know.
Yeah.
And there's always been this kind of, let's take the harmony and the melody from Western Europe and let's take the rhythm from Africa in American. I wish there was another word I could use other than American in terms of nationality, but there's not. Yeah. So I'm just going to say it. In Portuguese there is, and in Spanish there is, but in English there's not.
Yeah,
so
that's a problem with
that. So when I say American, I'm talking about the United States specifically here, but with American music, that this combination is the thing that has made American music, I think, so global in a way. You know, you have this incredibly rich Western European classical tradition, and then you have this incredibly rich African drumming tradition. And Brazil has the same. You know, when you listen to what do you call it, MPB? What do you call it?
Yeah, Música Popular Brasileira, MPB.
Yeah. Like you listen to Javan or Ivan Lins or Milton Nascimento or whatever. You're hearing this same thing. You're hearing Africa in the drums, and you're hearing, you know, France and Germany in the strings, in the melody and the harmony. So I feel like that's why Americans naturally, when they hear Brazilian music, they're like, I love it, you know, because it feels like us, but maybe a little up in a lot of ways, especially when you're talking about. But I mean, maybe like, you know, maybe a level above, you know, especially when we're talking about pop.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember the last time that the United States had a real pop star playing for 30,000, 40,000 people, writing music at the level of Javan or Milton.
Yeah.
Or,
but
you know,
the thing about
I mean,
Milton,
I don't know because I'm not Brazilian. I don't know if that continues.
Right. Well, Bernardo can talk to it more, but the thing about Javan and Milton is that they're from way back. Like, you know, that's old music at this point, you know? And so like the same way we would think about, you know, like, I don't know, James Taylor or whatever. Like that's kind of that era, that generation, you know? Those guys actually collaborated a lot. You know, there's some interaction between those groups of people. But, you know, what it is now, I don't know, man. The last time I was down there was a lot of Anita and that kind of stuff, you know? And it's not and you can see
Is it not still, are there not still new pop
It's
artists,
not like there
Bernardo, in
aren't.
Brazil who are selling
Yeah.
selling out arenas, doing really, really, really cool stuff.
Because those guys, Gilberto Gil, Djavan, they are not in position to sell like Beyonce. You know, it's not. They are making music for a lot of people, but and they play in the radio, of course. But for example, if you go to a favela ghetto here in Brazil and say Tom Jobim, people in general, of course, I cannot generalize, but it's there is a big chance they say, I don't know, Tom Jobim. But if you say Zeca Pagodinho, Martinho da Vila, Ivete Sangalo, then, people will know. So, but I saw an interview from you. You were saying something like, if I do a music expecting to get more people as possible, I will not do the music I believe. Right? You said that.
Yeah.
If you're trying to draw an
Yeah.
audience, you're not going to play the music that you want to play.
The main goal cannot be to take more people as possible. I think the main goal is to make a music that communicate. But I think I feel that from Snarky Puppy a lot.
Well, I think that and I think the irony is that the more you try to give people what you think they want, I feel like the more people see that it's not you. You know what I mean? So like you're actually kind of working against your goal. Whereas a person who really, Snarky Puppy does not play commercial music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we've had quite a bit of success, and I think it's just because of the belief. I think it's just because when an audience sees the band, they know we believe in it.
I was talking with Keita Ogawa last week about a groove here in Brazil called the Brazilian funk. We call funk, but there is nothing to do with James Brown. Actually, it started as a groove from Miami, so people know Miami beat. Grooves like, for example, this kind of thing, or that this last groove, like a tum tum ta tum tum ta tum tum ta tum. People are playing in the ghettos as a real music that they believe, we believe in this. Tum, tum, pa, tum. And this is the clave. Ta, ta, tum, tum, ta. And in some point, people start to apply the knowledge of Brazilian music, Afro-Brazilian music, in a natural way. For example, pum, pum, pa, pum, pum, pa, pum, pa, pa, pum, pum, pa, pum, pa, pa, pum, pum, pa. And they start to record grooves with the mouth, with the voice, but it sounded like electronic, like chum cha cha chugga cha chum cha cha chugga cha chum cha chum cha chum cha cha. That is very samba feeling. Chum cha chum cha cha. And people continue to say funk. So compare this with James Brown. Of course, there is a lot of similarity. They came from Africa, but it's very different. So I think it's a very nice thing from Brazilian music is this possibility to take the thing from outside, we eat, and we give back.
But this is, I've had this.
It's a vomit, but it's a gold vomit.
I like that. That's the title of the next PRD Maish record is going to be called Good Vomit. I had a conversation with my girlfriend about this actually recently, about like, why can Brazilians take music that's from another country that's like very fresh and new, and whatever they do to it, it always works. Whereas like, I don't know, there's a lot of countries that try to do that and you're like, man, no, please don't ever do that to our music. You know what I mean? Or whatever. But there's a thing, and the conclusion, whatever, our armchair kind of ethnomusicological conclusion was like, it's because Brazil has such an ingrained sense of what they are, or what it is as a musical culture, that you all have your stuff and you know exactly what that stuff is, that anytime you bring something from outside, it's running through that filter. You're not just seeing, you know, I mean, I love 70s Brazilian funk, like American funk, but the Brazilian version of it, like
that kind of stuff.
yeah, all this kind of stuff, or you know, and you hear it and it's like, it's obvious these people were listening to James Brown, but then when they play, it still sounds like Brazil, you know, and I think that this is kind of like the skeleton key, like the golden ticket, and I would apply it to being a band as well. You know, I think that if you have a band that has a very strong sound, like your own thing, you can take stuff from other places and run it through your filter and play it like it's yours without appropriating in the negative sense. You know, I mean, the Rolling Stones, right? Like the famous Keith Richards quote is, all we ever wanted to do and try to do was be a blues band from Chicago. And we failed at that and we became the Rolling Stones. You know what I mean? Because they really had their thing together as a band, and as hard as they would try to sound like a Chicago blues band, it never worked. But they were playing what they felt, trying to do that thing, and that became the Stones. And it's like, you know, I mean, this is a big topic. It's like the idea of musical appropriation, and especially right now in the world, people are very quick to be like, don't do that, you can't do that because you're not from there, and you know, your passport says this, so you're not allowed to play this groove. And I think it's all complete bullshit, because I think that any musical tradition that you look at, you look at the most fundamental things of that musical culture. Let's take Ganawa music, right, which is one of the oldest continuously existing musical cultures in the world, as far as I know. You know, what's one of the fundamental elements of Ganawa music? You know, that all the songs are religious, right? Specifically kind of Muslim, like Sufi generally, but Muslim. But the Ganawa people, you know, it's been like this for hundreds and hundreds of years, but the Ganawa people were Black, West, and Central Africans who were enslaved by Arabs. They didn't know anything about Allah when the Arabs arrived and enslaved them. They were playing and singing Ganawa music without any knowledge of a Muslim god.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And this is one example of like thousands of examples of someone would say, the Fado thing we were talking about earlier, you know, Justin Stanton from Snarky Puppy, who's Gisella's boyfriend actually, is playing piano on the record. And there was some, really, we're going to put piano on a Fado record? You know, it's like, that's kind of like a sin because piano's not traditionally Fado. That's what every purist would tell you. But the truth is, Fado started on piano, but it was so old that people don't remember that. People think of Fado as Portuguese guitar, Spanish guitar, acoustic bass, and voice. But before this was the common instrumentation, people were playing it in living rooms on piano. So it's like one of those things that, like, I just feel like, man, every genre of music, no matter how pure or folkloric or traditional you want to call it, at a certain point, the thing that we think of as the most fundamental element of that music, it was a revolution at one point in history. The introduction of Allah to Ganawa music was a revolution. You know what I mean? The introduction of X instrument to X genre. So, you know, I think it's just important that, like, if you're not from a musical culture and you're trying to learn the stuff, that you really take the time to do the homework and not just watching YouTube videos, but go to the country, take private lessons, play with the real people, and fail and feel, in my case, super white and super unfunky, and feel that way and feel bad about yourself, and then go back and do it again. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's the only way. And really, like, a Black person in America growing up in the Black church, at a certain point, maybe when they're 2 months old, but at a certain point in their life, hearing an organ is a new thing.
Yeah.
I'm white from the suburbs. My music should be rock and roll. That's what I grew up listening to, even though rock and roll is originally Black, but culturally in contemporary America, Nirvana, Pearl Jam. I grew up in the 90s, so this was like the thing. At a certain point, I heard Pearl Jam for the first time, and it was a revolution. You know, at a certain point, I heard a guitar solo for the first time. Maybe I heard it when I was 4 instead of 34, but everything's new to us. No one's born with blood that says samba when you do a DNA test.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
True. Yeah,
It's
very
like
true.
we're all students. We all have to learn, and I think you just have to have humility in that process and recognition of the fact that you have to work a lot harder. You know, that's what I always tell.
Yeah.
I do a lot of clinics in European or just in general, you know, non-American music universities and for jazz schools. And I'm like, listen, I know everybody thinks jazz is the world's music. It's not. It comes from Congo Square in New Orleans.
Yep.
And the second that you recognize that you're playing foreign music, I think you're going to get closer to learning it in a real way, because you have to respect. You can't just say, because I hear it all the time and because there's been a Norwegian jazz musician, that it's as much mine as it is someone from New Orleans. No, it's not. It's from a certain place. Samba's from a certain place. Arabesque is from a certain place. Canal is from a certain place. Gamelan is from, you know, and you have to really engage with that stuff and be humble and feel comfortable being uncomfortable, you know.
For sure.
Sorry, that
I
was
think
a wow.
Look, that's a diatribe. Look at you. But I think like my experiences in Brazil echo that sentiment beautifully, because like so many people that I've met there, the great musicians all recognize the malleability of music, you know, and how, you know, just within like one small area, if you just take forró, there is like a growth within forró and a move away from a certain instrumentation, move back to a certain instrumentation that like spans maybe 100 years or so. So you can't think of it as eternal being that we're worshiping. Like this is a result of humanity.
It's new.
And like humanity, it renews itself constantly. You know, as new people come into the tradition and pick it up and go with it, it changes. It moves the same way that we do. And so I think when people get really locked into like, no, this is the way it has to be, a lot of times I feel like that's exposing an insecurity about the music or an inability to risk making something new, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a benevolent impulse because you're trying to protect a beautiful thing,
Right.
and you don't want to see it desecrated. I don't particularly enjoy going to a jazz club in Paris or something and hearing people swinging in a, you know, in a really lame way, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, for me, yeah, I feel like, oh, come on, you know what I mean? And that's how a Brazilian would feel the first time they would hear me playing percussion. They'd be like, come on, you know what I mean? Like, I know how this is supposed to feel and you don't. Learn it, you know? But that's I think we have to take that, you just have to take that attitude with it. And that's why I say the humility is the most important part, that you recognize that as a foreign person, you're coming into this music. I'm coming into Brazilian music as an American, you know, without knowing as much as a Brazilian. And I need to really understand that and respect that and be you know, cognizant of that and behave in that way. I'm not going to make a record called Michael League Plays the Real Brazilian Shit. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, if I'm going to do something from Brazil, I'm going to do it.
We're going to put that online. We're taking that one, we're blasting it everywhere. No, that's,
please do
that's
not.
the truth, man.
But you know, you have to. I think there's being a student is one thing, and we're, as musicians, we're always going to be students. And then being a professional and releasing things and putting things out into the world is another thing. And you know, I'm a student of different kinds of music and different instruments, and I'm very careful about when I put those things. I try to be careful about when I'm putting those things out into the world, you know, so that at least when I'm doing it, I feel like I'm expressing this in my way. I have ownership of this thing, and it's difficult. It's not an easy thing to go through or to know when am I at the point where it feels good? You know, it's a thing that requires a lot of self-awareness and also talking to people and being like, how is this feeling to you? Blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is, I want to say, I think it's a healthy impulse and a healthy thing to have purists. I think it's good that there are people who are very fixed in their idea, because it creates some balance so that we don't just go kind of floating off into the ether without really respecting where the music has come from. You know, sometimes it's just kind of obnoxious, you know what I mean? Like when it's,
of course.
But I'm glad it's there. I'm glad you have the innovators and the people who go too far. And I'm glad you have the people who are really set in their ways, because it you know, it's just more perspectives. it's a good thing, you know. And the real challenge is like when you can win over both those people. To me, that's when I'm making a record like the one I made with Gisela, or you know, one I made with Susana Baca, producing for her in Peru, doing Afro-Peruvian music. They don't call me to make an authentic sounding record. You know what I mean? Like a folkloric record. They call me to take the music, the musical tradition and put it in a new light.
We had the
and so my goal with all those records is like,
we had the exact same conversation with Keita about that.
Yeah, the world does not need another great darbuka player.
That's exactly it, man. That's exactly it. Yeah, dude. I think a lot of that kind of stuff does come from a good place, and we kind of also talked about it the other day when we were talking about just samba in general. The reason samba feels good is because there's a downbeat, boom, 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 and the upbeats, if they're there by themselves, they don't mean anything. And it's kind of the same thing with the purists and the people who are really expanding. You know, if you think of the people who are really expanding as the upbeats, then they don't really mean anything unless there's something pure for them to kind of bounce off of, you know, in a very, very simplistic sense. And also, you know, you need that breadth.
And if you go to a foreign country, like if I have to choose between hearing a super innovative, crazy, modern Turkish band or like a trio of three old dudes playing in the corner of a restaurant, playing like some super deep old shit, I'm definitely always going to choose the second option. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's a beautiful thing. I'm American. I don't have that. I don't come from that.
It's rare.
You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, yeah, I mean, everything's new for us. And that's the thing that I have to offer.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like, you know, a folkloric musician who's coming, you know, 70th generation, you know, whatever, darbuka player. It's like this thing is who they are. And maybe they have the opposite problem maybe that I have. My problem is I don't have roots, you know. Their problem maybe is that it's really hard for them to think outside of these rules that they grew up checking out, you know. And I think it's important, not important, but I think it's a cool thing for both of those sides to try to glean some stuff from the other side and, you know, just continue learning. I think it's the best thing we can do as musicians. Yeah.
Totally. Falling into that and continuing to learn. We've been seeing you play a lot of drums lately, man. I even like early on during the quarantine.
I'm sorry.
I saw some Bocante videos. No, don't apologize. It's awesome, man, because we think it's, you know, I feel the same way about vocalizing, about singing, man. I think it's important for every musician to sing on some level, even if you sound terrible. Dude, I sound horrible as a singer. Like, it's just, anytime I do it, it's punishment for other people. But it's like, there's a Nana Vasconcelos quote that I reference all the time, is that the first instrument is the voice, and the best instrument is the body. And what I really get from that is that you have to like come from a singing place in order to play. That's where the music generates out of, you know? So it's important for you to engage that. I also think it's important for you to engage in drumming and like rhythmic music making, just hitting stuff, And you've kind of gotten into that a lot, like around Bocante and probably before that as well too. So how did you get into hand drumming and frame drumming, all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it started about maybe six years ago, maybe. Actually, I don't know when it started, but I was in Turkey playing with Snarky Puppy, and we invited this DAF ensemble. DAF is a Kurdish frame drum that's played in Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey in the Kurdish part, but it's penetrated to outside of Kurdistan as well. You know, modern, popular Iranian music will have it, for example, or Turkish music or whatever. And we invited this ensemble that was like 12 people or something to come play Shofukan with us because they had made a video of themselves on YouTube playing over our video.
Oh, really?
And they had sent it to me and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. So I hit them up when we were coming to Istanbul and said, play the song with us, you know. And it was a really incredible night. They played the tune. At a certain point, the band dropped out and they kept playing and the crowd was singing. And it was like only Turkish people, but they were making music. We were not making music, but it was our song, and it was kind of this very kind of super crazy moment. And then after the gig, we went and had a late dinner with them, and then we hung out at their rehearsal space, similar to the Bernardo Rio vibe, and they were giving all the people in the band lessons. You know, we stayed up Actually, wow, this is funny, Bernardo. So we stayed up until about 7 a.m. just like playing this stuff, and then we went and had like dinner at 7 a.m. like badass kebabs on the street, and then we realized that our flight to Rio was leaving like in 2.5 hours or something. So we like, well, you know, so we split, went straight to the airport without sleeping, and flew to Rio to play for the first time, and that's when I met you.
Wow.
So this was the day before, actually, at the BMW Jazz Fest. Bobby McFerrin and Ahmad Jamal. And so I loved this drum so much that I went back because I wanted to take some. I was like, it's, you know, it's a cheap instrument. Like, I'll buy one and take some lessons from this guy who became now one of my best friends. And I went and spent, like, I was planning on spending like 5 days there, and I just kept like rebooking my flight and rebooking my flight and rebooking my flight because I was just so in love with the instrument and with Istanbul. So it's like, and then I went. I had to, a couple years ago. I still have a polyp in my throat. I had to go on vocal rest. So I decided to go there live there for 2 months and just study, basically, and not talk, which, as you can tell already, is very difficult for me. So yeah, so it's called DAF. It's like a wooden frame drum, normally with goat skin, but now more synthetic. It's more common for it to be synthetic. And on the inside, they have these rings. And it's kind of like Bendedo, actually. Bendedo in that it kind of has a whole drum set in it. Like, you have like a bass tone, which is this. And then you have, oh shit, my computer's about to wipe out. And then you have like a snare tone. You know, there's different ones, but. And then you have like, this is kind of like a tom. But you have these rings also, which allow you to do this, which is a super cool sound. Or this. So you can go like, you can incorporate it as a separate stroke, like. Right? Or you can do it as a combination stroke, like. So you can do it with the bass, with the snare, whatever. And then like the really super dope thing is like you can use it almost like a hi-hat or a ride where you go like consistently like. You know, so you're kind of, you have like this kind of riding thing, which
we
is
select
super
here.
And you can do any combination of.
We selected here a video you playing this drum.
No. Don't do it. Don't do it.
No?
Oh, that's
a different drum.
Small one, small.
Yeah.
This is actually this drum is.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Right. So
what drum is that? That's different.
Drum is. This is called Sumbati. So it's basically it's from the Darbuka family. It's like the medium-sized drum in the Darbuka family. The drum that in this style that I mostly play is called Dohola, which is the bass one. It comes from Egypt originally, and it's huge. It's upstairs. So this was closer, so I just grabbed this. But it's ceramic and goat skin. And I actually fell in love with this instrument while I was living in Turkey. I was spending 2 months there studying the other drum. And just for fun, every Thursday, I would go to this class and just sit and listen to like 8 people playing these, doholas in unison. And it was one of the craziest sounds I've ever heard in my life. And the guy who teaches that class told me I used to be a DAF player, and then I started playing this drum and I never picked up a DAF again. So I was like, oh no. So he gave me this, actually, the teacher gave me this, and then I kind of like shifted focus a little bit. I mean, I still practice DAF, but this instrument is, I mean, especially the Dahola has its own world. I really love versus the plastic darbuka sound with the plastic head and the kind of metal frame.
Really high
The sound of the goat. It's really beautiful, you know. And also, there's this kind of really interesting technique on the left hand that I love. And I mean, it's kind of like similar to the DAF in that you can really create a load of sounds and play a normal like drum set grooves on it or whatever, or grooves from all around the Middle East. And I mean, really anything. It's very versatile. And actually, I'm going to make like a solo pop record, and I'm going to not use any drum set. So I'm going to try to just use like Daoul, which is like a big marching bass drum, Turkish marching bass drum, and Dahola and Sumbati and Darbuka and Daf and Krakab from Morocco, and see if I can kind of get the feeling of a drum set with all of these different things.
From that, are they normally played in kind of ensembles like that where you have the different sizes playing together?
Yes, and Dahola normally is playing like the bass one. It traditionally just kind of would do like on a basic groove, like right, and then the higher instruments would be filling it in. You know, but there's this guy named Masurla Ahmet, who's a Turk who kind of reinvented the Dahola. He like went there and basically was applying the techniques for the higher drums on that drum, but then expanding it really, really deep. He just like totally turned he's kind of like Marco Susano of the Dahola.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So
nice. Taking it in another
yeah,
direction
I mean,
opening it up. Because really, it's like, it's a very simplistic thing.
Right.
I
would really
drums all over the world. You find these drums all over the world, right? Like especially the frame drums anyway. Like there's just this ingredient of a frame and a skin. And people find different ways to play it, but you're always kind of going for that trinity, low, medium, and high. And once you find those on any single drum, you can kind of create, and within a musical region, they create a specific culture around that. But it's something that can be taken out into other things because it is so related to all these other drums, man. It's endless, dude. That's the beauty of this kind of, research into folkloric music, is that like every little crevice opens up another crevice, and you can find these weird little styles within a style that's endless. It's terrifying and joyful at the same time.
It's so rich. I mean, the world is so rich with music, and I think it's just one of those things like we were talking about earlier. It's like, when you go after it, I think you just have to spend the time to learn the shit, like with my Gimbri teacher in Morocco, I told him, don't ever teach me anything that hasn't been played 100 times. Because as an American, I'm always going to be thinking, how can I turn this into my shit? Like what can I use this for? It's my natural state. My natural state is not to learn a 6-minute transcription note for note of a folkloric thing. So that's what I want to do when I'm taking lessons. I want to be trying to create balance in my own musicianship. I want to learn the super hardcore, everything totally correct, like really traditional, because I'm naturally going to move in the other direction, and I want to create balance. Yeah, it's going to happen anyway, and I think if you're the opposite kind of musician, it's important to do the opposite, to spend more time focusing on things that kind of like open up creative doors versus learning the technique or something like that. So, I mean, it's an interesting process, but now I'm like totally addicted to it. I'm super into
welcome to the club, Drumaholics Anonymous, man. We all got our problems, man. We were just talking to Kato the other day, and like the stack of drums that he's got there in his house, like you just start end up collecting these things, and then you think, I'm going to get this drum and I'll get rid of this drum, but you never get rid of that drum, and then all of a sudden you've got,
never do, because it sounds different.
Yeah, that's it. They all sound different. I mean, dude, I have like an entire
Yeah.
like, you know, samba section from like the original PRD Mice tour here with me because it was just like, well, we can't get rid of these things, you know. And eventually I turned it into Miami Block with the group that we play with at the Ground Up Music
Right.
Festival. But it's like you can't get rid of that stuff. You just have to add to it. You have to add to it, man.
Yeah,
So,
and I want to just say, you know, I know we have to split in a minute, but you know that I think what you guys are doing with your group is so cool. You know, I feel like it's really that perfect combination of mixing an intense knowledge of your tradition. Obviously, I mean, you have members of the band who are, you know, cornerstones of Brazilian folkloric music right now. You know, and just mixing it with new, fresh stuff. I love it. You know, kudos.
yeah, man. Well, I
you
mean,
all.
thank you so much for like giving us an opportunity to kind of to be on the label and all that sort of stuff, but like be a part of the Ground Up family
course.
and be a part of the festivals and all that sort of stuff that have happened. It's been really amazing, and we were so excited to
Absolutely.
share that with you because it was such a man. When we made those, we were just thinking we're going to make a couple of internet videos. We're going to go to Philadelphia and we're just going to make
Right.
a couple of videos to throw up on Facebook so we have something fun to do. And we got done with it and I was like, man, I think there's an album here. I think there's an album here. And we dug
Yeah,
into
that's
it
great.
more and did more editing. And then all of a sudden there was something there, man. So it was really cool to get to share that with you and then feel that it was like, oh, this is something interesting to people outside of just our own little circle because we were so insular about it, you know.
Super cool.
It's that first thing when you share something with the
Yeah,
world,
that's
and
incredible.
you're just kind of like hesitant about it. So we look forward to the day when we get to like, you know, share the stage again. We had such a great time playing with you guys in Sao Paulo. I remember that show vividly, man, in Cine Joia when we got to open up for you there, and
Yeah.
it was just so much fun to play that music with you guys in front of an audience like yours because it's such a musically oriented audience, you know. It's you got a bunch of really fanatic, like you know, musically interested people that like when they come to see a Snarky Puppy show and then they see a group opening up for them and playing with them that's speaking of their own musical language, like it erupted in that room in a way that I've never seen again since then, man. So it was an incredible experience. You remember that, Bernardo, right?
Yeah,
That
that
was
was
a great time.
special.
Yeah. And I will talk something that I already talked to Michael, but I never talk with for more people listen. It's that when I record with family dinner too, it was a very amazing experience because everybody loves music, like everybody professional, like rehearsing a lot, and in the end of the day, go to jam session. This was in New Orleans during the carnival. It was amazing. And in the very end, because we stay like 1 week rehearsing in the playing, recording, and in the last day, the last hours, last session, we were having dinner, and I was seated with my colleague in my side, and I was, man, this what you did is amazing, musical, and you said, do you know what I think is more amazing? It's the connection between the people who will be, and for example, a lot of things happen after that. I think it was 2015. That's about these connections that was starting 5 years ago. So I think more than just a musician, you are a guy with a very good soul that make connections, link points. That I think is one of the most nice thing in the life. To link points.
Thanks, man. Well, likewise. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a thing about musicians, like that thing I said about Jeff earlier, you know, Jeff Coffin wanting to connect people. It's like, you know, you always, I think you can get a sense when like, okay, this musician with this musician.
For
That's
example, I'm
gonna be
recording
a
with
really
him
nice
this week.
thing.
I'm recording with him this week, but he
Yeah.
sent me things.
There you go.
So there is a kind of things happen from this meeting. It's amazing. And PR Demais
Absolutely.
is one example of that. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's beautiful, man.
Yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much for doing this. For
My pleasure.
coming and doing the show and hanging with us a little bit, and also like you and the Ground Up family for hosting us on the YouTube channel and getting us out to a new audience. It was cool to
course.
see so many different people here today and interact with everybody. So keep up with us. You can follow us, and all the socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out the website Groove Art and check out the Pandeiro Moderno website. We're gonna have to get you playing some Pandeiro, man. We're gonna have to add that to your your group of frame drums there?
Oh God, that's a deep dark
Yeah.
hole. But
time.
I'm definitely Bernardo. Yeah, yeah. I'm in the next couple of years. I'm gonna try to come to Brazil for like 3 months and just study. So I'm gonna be giving you a lot of
There you go.
notice.
You and Chris always say that.
Hey, I mean it.
No, no.
I've done it in other places. I'm gonna do it in Brazil.
Yeah,
It's
please,
just
please.
you know. It's just I know that's a real hole down that so I have to make sure that I really have like a long chunk of time when I can go and do it. So
Please.
I
Like
think that's
Carnival,
great.
remember? I was trying to bring you to Carnival. You almost
I
came.
know I almost came. Yeah,
One of
I
these
know,
years.
I know.
Go to
We're gonna do it.
Pernambuco.
We're gonna do it. One of these years.
Future Carnival. It'll happen.
Yeah,
It'll
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But thank you so much, man. We really, really appreciate it here. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And,
Thanks,
I'm looking forward
guys.
to the next time we get to see each other in person again and hang out and play again. And I hope you're well. Everybody stay safe.
Me too,
and,
man.
and be
Me
good.
too.
And,
Both of you guys.
we'll talk with you all soon, man.
We'll finish with a song.
Oh, beautiful. What we got?
Yeah. Let's see.
Cue it up, DJ. Production value to the end.
Yeah.
To the end, baby. We got to fire the producer for this show, man. They're really.
This one here.
What's this one? Oh, nice. Okay, dude. Yeah,
It's gonna
we're
be
gonna
like
listen to this one.
a Viagra ad, right? Oh,
Oh, man. Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody, for hanging. Check out this video, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.